Welcome to this video that's going to show you how to create department journals. The first thing I'd make sure is you've rerun the last pay run so you've got up-to-date documents in my documents and also in the journal. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the latest pre-approval summary 2 just as a reference point to make sure we've got a journal to compare, and that just checks we're going to build the right journal. So when that opens, you can quickly go to the journal tab and literally just find the last journal, which is really just a reference point, and we'll use that as a template as well. So we pop that into the corner. So the way in which you actually download real data for doing any kind of journaling is always from My Analytics. So what we'll do is we'll go into My Analytics, and all you need to do is press the download button to download the data you're going to need. Now what's important is you don't open this file, but in fact you go to where it's been downloaded. What we're going to be doing is we're going to drag that analytics file into our new folder, and I suggest this is the folder where you're going to be storing your department journals. And what's very important is you rename it, and I think the easiest way is to rename it just by taking off all the letters so it just has a simple name like Finance Journal. So importantly, we're now going to open this finance journal, and we're going to build our department journal from it. So when it opens, what we're going to do is we're literally going to insert pivot table. Now again, this can be a bit fiddly, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to take off just the dollars. Now if you use the cursor keys, that's going to happen. So if that happens, cancel, go back in again. And again, very carefully, click your cursor and just use the delete button. Never use the arrow buttons. So as you can see there, we're just picking column A to column RQ very, very carefully. So now we've got the range, we'll just say OK. And we're now ready to start selecting the fields that we need. So we'll copy the reference pivot journal table, so we can pop that there, and we'll literally paste it next to our table so we actually got a good reference tab from which to build. So we'll just open up the column so it's a little bit easier to read, zoom in a bit, and now you can see all the data that we're looking for. So as we click over on the left, we're going to be looking for all these various fields in the pivot table fields. So there's gross pay, so we'll tick that. The next one is the NIC, and we're going to be picking, we're actually picking all the fields. Now as you can see, Excel's arranged them horizontally. We actually want them vertically, so we just drag the values down into rows. So now we're building up just a set of all the values that we need on the left. Let's just delete these empty columns. So we'll continue on, there's only a few more to pick. We'll now look for pensions. So we want pensions contribution for worker and for company. The next one we want is net pay. And then we want PAYE tax. And then because we've got the NIC ones, we don't need those. It literally just comes down to the last two, which is student loan. And while we're here, we'll pick student loan, but we may as well pick postgraduate loan in case that occurs in the future. So now we've got all our values on the left ready to go. So the values on the left, and then the other thing we need to do is we want to drag into the filters actuality and department. Okay, so now we're done. So what we're now going to start doing is replacing those hard-coded values that we pasted with the real values. So we literally just type equals, and then we go and click over to the various ones. And we just repeat that process until we've replaced our hard-coded values with real values from the value. Now importantly, we should say if there's any negatives, you will need to change them into a positive just by putting a minus in front. So we continue on in the same way, it's all quite straightforward. Net pay. Now PAYE tax, as you can see, is a negative, so we can select it, but of course it's negative, so we need to just put that minus in front, so equals minus. and the same for the next couple. They're all -2, so we're just going to need to invert them with a minus sign. And then the only tricky one, which is coming up next, is a student loan, because that's actually going to need two values added together. So the way in which we'll do that is we'll basically put a minus in that column, and then we'll put another minus, and we'll add the post-credit loan to it. So that's basically complete. We're just going to replace those hard-coded sums with some real sums, and that's the total journal. Now we want to check that our journal matches. So what we'll do is we'll compare it to one at the bottom, and we'll zoom in a little bit just so we can see the values. And what's important, of course, is we're going to have to filter this down now to just the particular pay run rather than all pay runs. And as we can see, we've actually got a mismatch there. This is quite common. In my particular case, we've got a mismatch because we've actually got a test worker in our demo system that actually is getting paid. But just to go and repair this, we'll literally go in this particular case, or we could make any changes, but in this case I'm going to drag a test employee in, and the whole report can now be filtered by excluding test employees. And now you can see we've got a perfect match between our pivot and obviously the reference we have at the bottom. So now we know it's a good report. So very importantly, before we proceed, we now want to move this sheet into a completely standalone book, because we want to be able to run it independently. So here's the sheet that we built into book, and so now we should go and save that away into a folder, into that same folder. So let's actually give that file a decent name. This is actually going to be our departmental journal that we're going to open and save every time. Okay, so what we'll now do is we'll close all the documents. So we've now done our preparation work, everything's built. So very simply, this is where we're going to have the finance journal that comes down from payroll every time, which is linked to the departmental journal, which is the report we just built. So next run, imagine we move forward to the next run. What we're now going to do is we're just going to go to My Analytics, and we're going to download the new analytics file, which let's assume has the new pay run in it that we didn't have before. Now again, what we now have to do is we're going to pick that file, and we're actually going to move it into our folder. And you'll notice, of course, it has a different name. Now we want to make sure that the name's right, so we'll delete the previous one and just move that into the bin. And then we're going to very carefully rename this new one to be our link name. Because these are linked by name, it's quite important that you keep those links there. Okay, so we've now got a new data set which is linked. So we're going to open our journal here. So let's enlarge it a bit, and we'll make it a bit larger. And all we have to do is click in the pivot table, go to pivot table analyze, and click refresh all. This will completely refresh any new data that we've done, thereby not requiring us to actually have to manually do that again. So we'll give that a few seconds because it does take a little while, and then we're ready to go. So the most important part of this then is just to show you how you do the departmental filtering. Well, you have both departmental filtering, and in this case we've also got filtering by pay runs. So we can pick any particular individual pay run or group of pay runs, and then very importantly, if we just clear all the departments, we're able to select any particular department, and hey presto, we've got a journal by department for any particular pay run over any date range. Thank you very much.